What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are ready to wrap things up. In case you have been living under a rock, you may not have seen. If you're under the rock, you maybe haven't subscribed to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. And if that is the case, wow, what are you doing? Make sure to subscribe, please, here. Like the video, turn on notifications, all that fun stuff. We are the most subscribed to individual team channel across all of the SB Nation universe. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do so. Twitter, Instagram, threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, rj.ochoa. Email is rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. If you want to send me one, you can also leave a comment down below. I'll do my best to get to those also. And what I was talking about is if you've been living under a rock, over the last few weeks, I've been doing my Dallas Cowboys roster breakdown series all throughout the Blog and the Boys universe, writing articles, doing videos, having social posts, talking about each and every single position on the roster. I've linked to each of them down in the description below if you want to watch a single one. If you're curious about the Cowboys wide receivers or the Cowboys, defensive tackles, whatever the case may be, you can check those out obviously throughout our channel or throughout, the description down below. I also, as mentioned, have written about these things, you can check out the articles down in the description as well. The article for this subject is not available at the time that I'm publishing the video. The video is being recorded. Today is Thursday, July the 18th, and going out right after I get this done. It's about lunchtime, but it should be out, I'm thinking, probably on Friday. It's probably when this article will go out. This article, this subject, this video, as you can tell by the cover and the title, is the Cowboys coaching staff. I've already talked about the entire roster from a player standpoint, but did want to kind of tie a neat bow on top of it all by talking about the staff. Now, here's the thing about the Cowboys coaching staff. I have some thoughts and I have some opinions as I'm looking to get our pictures up here for you. Um, I've gone back and forth. It's really not a back and forth thing. I've been upset, and I think we all have been upset. And I'm now at a place where I've been before, and it's where I guess I'm a Mike McCarthy apologist. So we have to start here, obviously, with the head coach, the play caller, Mike McCarthy. And I'm just going to say this right now, put it on your screen. Mike McCarthy does not get enough credit. Now, I say all that to say, look, I was very upset with Mike McCarthy after the playoff. Actually, let me back up. I am fortunate to have a lot of friends who have a lot of different shows or whatever the case may be. And anytime last year, like this time last year and all throughout the season, anytime I was asked by them, what happens if Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys don't reach the NFC Championship game? Do you fire him? Blah, blah, blah. And everything I always said to that question a year ago was, well, how do they miss the NFC Championship game, right? It depends on the context. Do they lose on a last second field goal? Do they get blown out? Those things matter. And I will say to you what I said at the time, that the way the Cowboys lost to the Packers in the wild card round was among the very small handful of ways that I would have personally made the decision to move on from McCarthy. I stand by having said that in the middle of January when we were all frustrated and mad. And I'm not walking that back, but it is an indication or another example or representation of the philosophy that multiple things can be true. It could be true that it may have been the right thing to move on from Mike McCarthy, but it can also be true that Mike McCarthy does not get enough credit. Now, I've said this many times, and somehow, some way, people don't seem to care, which is wild to me. But there's only one team that has won more regular season games than the Cowboys over the last 3 years. Why do I always choose the last 3 years? McCarthy's been the head coach of the Cowboys for 4 years. That first year, Dak Prescott got hurt in the middle of October. And if you lose your franchise quarterback, I think that gives any coach a pass, right? Like, we're not sitting here and, mad at the Bengals for what happened to them last year because Joe Burrow got hurt, right? Like, that so much depends on that. So that being said, the 3 years in which he has had his starting quarterback for the majority of the season, Mike McCarthy has delivered playoff season after playoff season. Obviously, the third, playoff season last year, 12 wins, 12 wins, 12 wins. Only the Chiefs, again, have won more regular season games than the Cowboys over the course of the last 3 years. And I wanted to look at that in a different way. And I tweeted about this, and I'm going to include it in the reel and TikTok that I do on this. In the tweet, I didn't grab it for this video, but there are 6 teams, that have been to the playoffs each of the last 3 years. Only 6 teams out of 32 in the entire NFL have been to the playoffs each of the last 3 years. There are 2 in the AFC. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Even the Bengals, because of Joe Burrow's injury last year, have not been to the playoffs every year for the last 3 years in a row. There are four, amazingly, NFC teams that have been to the playoffs each of the last 3 years. You've got the San Francisco 49ers, duh. You've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the end of the Tom Brady era. And obviously, last year they won the NFC South. You've got the Philadelphia Eagles, and you've got the Dallas Cowboys. Now, of those six teams, the Chiefs have far and away the most playoff wins. They have 9 because they've won 2 Super Bowls, and last year didn't have the first round bye, so they picked up 4 wins just last year. The Buffalo Bills obviously have had some success. They've won a playoff game each of the last 3 years, but that's it. They've only won 3. The San Francisco 49ers have won 6 playoff games over the course of the last 3 years and have no trophies to show for it. It's got to make 49ers fans sick, I would imagine. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers have 2 playoff wins in that time. The Eagles have 2 playoff wins, one of which came against a team that literally did not have a quarterback. The other came against the New York Giants. And the Cowboys, meanwhile, are last in this specific realm with only a singular playoff win in that particular time period over the Buccaneers with Tom Brady, who I know are below 500, which again gets used against McCarthy and the Cowboys and everybody, blah, blah, blah. And I say all this to say because, I mean, these are really short lists that McCarthy is a part of and that the Cowboys have been a part of with Mike McCarthy. And I trust him. So I really trust. He has turned this into a team that is in the mix year after year after year after year. Aaron Schatz has said it to me and to obviously all of you in the interviews I've done with him recently. You're only a team that can't win in the playoffs until you win in the playoffs, right? I behind you all here as I'm recording, I've got the Open Championship on, and I referenced it in a conversation with Aaron a few months ago, actually, when Xander Schauffele won the PGA Championship. He was this player that couldn't get it done, and then he got it done. And so, will that be the Cowboys this year? I don't know, but I maintain that Mike McCarthy does not get enough credit. And something else that I would offer about Mike McCarthy and about credit is last year he decided to move on from Kellen Moore, a decision that I disagreed with. All right. I mean, you got egg all over my face. And he said, I think we can be even better on offense. And to be very clear, the Cowboys were very, very, very good on offense under Kellen Moore. And not only was Kellen not very good with the Chargers, but McCarthy was right. he was completely right. He called his shot and was correct. I mean, can you imagine, when Sean McDermott takes over the Buffalo Bills defense or whatever, and they have success, everybody, champions him. And they should, right? They say, Sean McDermott, what a great job, blah, blah. You did it. You took over. You called your shot, and you did it. But, I mean, does anybody give him McCarthy that love? It's been kind of strange in that sense to me. So he oversaw career years for Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb that have yet to result in contract extensions for them, obviously. And so I maintain that he doesn't get enough credit. And I say all this to say because this could be the last year of Mike McCarthy in terms of being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't know what the future, holds for the Cowboys if that's the case, but I will say now that we, on some level, will miss these days. This is not normal, what is happening around here. And we know that better than anybody else. So, hey, kudos, Mike McCarthy. Well done. All right, let's, this isn't going to take long. No offense to Brian Schottenheimer, but he's the offensive coordinator and he's not the offensive play caller. But as mentioned, the Cowboys offense had a high level of success last year. And so you really can only say that he did his job very, very, very well. Obviously kind of handles the day-to-day, with things because Mike McCarthy, even though he's the play caller, is the head coach and has other jobs and duties and responsibilities. And so I think we have to give, Brian Schottenheimer a round of applause. So here you go, Shotty. You got it from us. All right. This takes us to, I feel like I've been very positive so far in our discussion here today. I'm going to be a little bit more negative here, not, on purpose, but because that's just how I feel. And this if you've been watching me over the course of the offseason. I am not in on the Mike Zimmer thing. If you remember when he was hired, it was the week of the Super Bowl, obviously. And the only real contenders with Zimmer for the defensive coordinator job for a team that is in, a dire situation were Ron Rivera and Rex Ryan. That's it. Those are the people. Those are the dudes. Those are the only names that the Cowboys really ever had connected to the job. And obviously they had a departure and Dan Quinn took Joe Witt and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. But I just have a hard time saying honestly that it felt like they took it seriously. It felt like, they knew Mike Zimmer, and it felt like they, connected themselves to other names that would make Zimmer look even better. And that's just kind of how things ultimately worked out. Now, a lot of people who know way more about the schematic side of football than I have, people like Bob Sturm and John Owning and these geniuses who cover the NFL and the Cowboys and do such a great job of it, have spoken with high praise about Zimmer, and I'm willing to trust that. But I'm hesitant here. I'm not diving all the way in. But that being said, so much of this season depends on this. So much of this season depends on Zimmer being the right guy. And he might very well be, again, as evidenced by what we've been talking about so far for 10 minutes. I have been wrong a lot. And I hope I'm wrong here, honestly. I don't put a lot of stock into the Micah Parsons quote about not really communicating with him, blah, blah, blah. The most important thing that Mike Zimmer has to get done is turning Mozzie Smith into something legitimate along the interior. That is the most important thing. He has great players to rely on and to trust and to kind of let them do their thing. The secondary we've talked about, obviously, every position group here in this series is at a great place. The pass rushers are in a great place. Do I believe that Zimmer is going to be a bit of a hard ass and have some attitude and instill some accountability? Yeah, I guess so. Is that what this team needs? Will that get old if they're not winning? I don't know. But this is where I'm most hesitant. I feel like there are a lot of Cowboys fans, and maybe you're among them, who are willing to kind of believe that this is going to work out. And if so, I'm fine that we disagree. I hope you're right, because I'm on the fence here as it relates to Mike Zimmer. Now, I mentioned the candidates who were kind of named or reported to be named as far as the what was at the time vacant defensive coordinator position. I know a lot of us thought that that Al Harris obviously would make sense. He did get the promotion, obviously, because Dan Quinn wanted him to join his staff in Washington. And this discussion that we're having here is obviously mostly about the coordinators and the head coach for the Cowboys in terms of their staff. But I did want to include Al Harris because he's amazing. I mean, what he has touched, everything he's touched, has turned to gold over the course of the last 3 years. I think that everybody, for whatever reason, believed that he would hold a higher level of loyalty to Dan Quinn, and maybe he would have. But I think we all forgot that Al Harris was a player for Mike McCarthy. If Al Harris had, any kind of common denominator with him when he joined the Cowboys coaching staff, it was Mike McCarthy, who was his head coach, obviously, with the Green Bay Packers. I should also mention, because my dad is an alum of this university, shout out to what was Texas A&I in Kingsville, Texas, and now Texas A&M University, Kingsville, the Javelinas, where Al Harris obviously played his college football. But anyway, I mentioned everything he's touched has turned to gold. The last 3 years is a time period that I've referenced many, many, many times for reasons that I've already outlined. But in that same time period, the NFL's interception leader is Trayvon Diggs, who Al Harris obviously has worked incredibly close with. Tied for second with Russell Douglas is Deron Bland. And each of the two players that we're talking about here on the Cowboys, and I mentioned this in the cornerbacks video, have missed basically an entire season. Trayvon Diggs only played in 2 games last year before tearing his ACL, so he lost that season. And Deron Bland literally was still in college in 2021, so he was not part of this time period in that specific sense. So, I mean, there is no question that Al Harris is making a sizable impact. And I know that we like to play the game when the Cowboys have a coach who may be on the outs, who we're worried about or who are thinking is going to be fired or dismissed or not welcome back. And obviously, everybody thought that Kellen Moore was going to be that guy with Jason Garrett. If there was a future head coach on this team, whether it's on this staff, whether it's for the Cowboys or somebody else, there's no doubt in my mind that it's Al Harris. I will ride with this dude into the battles of anywhere. Give me Al Harris forever and ever and ever and ever. Thankfully, he was able to be retained, and he did not ultimately follow Dan Quinn to Washington. All right, this takes us to our last name here, and it is John Fossil. Among the staffers for Mike McCarthy of note, he's the only one that has been around for the entire Mike McCarthy era. He was hired obviously in 2020, left the Rams, left Sean McVay's Rams at the time, which I thought was an interesting thing, to join Mike McCarthy. And I know that we all kind of had our issues with John Fossil at the beginning because he's a bit of an aggressive coach, but he is so good. I mean, he makes special teams exciting. He makes special teams interesting. He makes special teams tactical. He makes them strategic. I mean, anything and everything about Bones Fossil is so interesting, and he's obviously a very fun personality. And so, where I think that John Fossil has the chance to, you know, legitimately impact things for the Cowboys this year, and I've talked about this many different times already, is in the new kickoff. We have no idea what this is going to bring us. And remember that John Fossil was among those who presented the new kickoff to the owners at the owners' meetings, the owners who obviously voted to approve it. So if anyone, had the Rogue One plans in terms of how to, infiltrate this new, setup, it's John Fossil. So I fully trust that John Fossil is going to figure out how to crack this code and how to take advantage. And it's been reported by many different people around the NFL. Whoever is the first to do that, whoever gets that inside track, is going to have such a leg up on the competition. And I'm excited for John Fossil to have the opportunity to do that. So, I feel very good about the state of the Dallas Cowboys coaching staff, honestly. Um, except for the Mike Zimmer thing. That's the only place where I have any level of concern. And like I said, there are enough people who I trust that have high levels of, or have opinions on this situation. So I'm willing to be proven wrong, and I hope that I ultimately am. This has been a lot of fun, this Dallas Cowboys roster breakdown series. I like doing it every year because it helps me kind of refresh myself on the roster as we get ready for training camp. And I hope that it's informative for you. That's the entire purpose of this, obviously. I also hope that it's entertaining. That's also the point of this entire thing. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've watched all the episodes or a singular episode or none of the episodes, that would be impossible because then you wouldn't be here. But it's been a lot of fun, and I thank you for coming along the journey with me. So training camp starts in earnest next week for the Dallas Cowboys, but we'll obviously have other things getting ready for that and whatnot. But this does tie a bow on the Dallas Cowboys roster breakdown series, so no more episodes coming now. Again, you can revisit any episode that I've done down in the description below or throughout our channel, which you should subscribe to if you haven't yet. Please subscribe here to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. We are the most subscribed to individual team channel at SB Nation, something I am very proud of, and I hope you are too, because you have made that the case. Like the video, turn on notifications. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do so. Twitter, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, rj.ochoa, email rj.ochoa@sbnation.com, or leave a comment down below, and I'll do my very best to get to those as well. If you've been playing the new college football game, I hope you're having fun. Can't wait to get going with Arizona State and have a whole lot of fun and all sorts of road to glory and dynasty modes and whatnot. But for now, I'm going to get out of town. Not literally, I already did that, but get out of town here and get ready for next week, because things are going to be going all over the place. We'll have you covered at blogontheboys.com, here on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel, on my social channels, all over the place. Football season is effectively here, and that is a very, 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 very exciting thing. So my name is RJ Ochoa. Bear and Honey have been in the office, and they've been good puppies, although Honey's starting to growl, so I'm getting kind of nervous, which means I have to get out of here. So for me, RJ, Bear, Honey, and everybody else, across the side of YouTube, thanks so much for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.